You know that song?
Yeah, what's my weakness, man?
Not everyone gets it. Not everyone gets it. I could tell because you laugh. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome. Thanks for those of you that are already jumping on live. This is Her Talk Show. My name is Sabrina Victoria. I am here with Bobbie, and we are talking all about becoming invincible. So get comfortable as we explore the triumphs and challenges faced by women and men worldwide, offering insights and inspiration to fuel your personal and professional growth. Let's jump right in.
Get ready, because today's guest is about to change the way you view your world. This is Her Talk Show, hosted by Sabrina Victoria.
I love it. If you're listening live, welcome. I see you. If you're listening on the replay, make sure you hashtag replay wherever you're at so we can send you some love in the comments. We are here every single day, Monday through Friday, and we delve deep into the realms of health, wealth, and leadership with some of the most brilliant women globally. We've interviewed over 600 women, and today we are adding another one to the list. We have Bobbie with us, who is the creator of 321 No Kiddin, Sober Bar and Social Club. Overcoming problem gambling and abuse of alcohol has inspired her mission to raise awareness around gambling addiction and mental wellness. Her recovery journey has taught her that she is invincible and will overcome anything as long as she continues to do the work while giving herself love and grace. I love that. Welcome, Bobbie.
Thank you so much for having me, Miss Sabrina.
Yes, girl. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to sit with us. I know that you are moving over there.
It's all good stuff. I call it hashtag happy problems when you got a to-do list you can't keep up with.
Yes, that's my type of girl for sure. So, listen, this is a problem area all over America. Addiction,
It is.
mental health, mental wellness. People popping pills left and right, trying to numb themselves. We got anxiety. We're overwhelmed. I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about your story. I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about, you know, how, the journey of how you came out on the other side.
Okay, let's go. So the backstory is, we grew up, not a lot of finances, a lot of addiction around us. And this is my self-discovery version. I don't know if it's all true, but this is the way I reflect upon it. When I started working, I knew I didn't want to become an alcoholic or a drug addict. And luckily, I was too afraid to put stuff up my nose, and I was too afraid of needles. And because we didn't have a lot of money, when I got paychecks, I felt very empowered to do what I wanted to do with the money because I was always living in scarcity. So I think insert gambling problem, not just because of the money, but because I was escaping and numbing all the bad things that were happening, quote unquote, bad things. There was a lot of death at 14. I lost someone every year consecutively on a different holiday for 5 years. My uncle committed suicide the week of Christmas and New Year's. The following year, someone OD'd on Thanksgiving. I lost my first boyfriend. I mean, like on and on and on. And again, I didn't know at the time I was numbing. So I always buried myself in work, and I always have been grateful to my responsibility level. I was able to move up through my career, have very wonderful 6-figure jobs, do the thing, be what most might call a functional alcoholic in the background, because my drinking did eventually ramp up. My gambling really ramped up. And I finally went to treatment in 2017 for gambling addiction. But when I went, people were like, are you going for gambling or are you going for alcohol? And I was like, whoa, one thing at a time, please. So I got through that. And then about 3 years later, the alcohol kind of fell away. And this is when you read my bio and talked about doing the work. I was doing the work on recovering so I wouldn't gamble, but simultaneously I was doing the work on healing and the drinking. I didn't need to numb as much. I put a rule in place in 2019 and said, I can't drink to cope, because my counselors were bugging me. I passed the test to where you're abusing alcohol. And I was like, well, I don't want to give it up. So I made that rule and I broke it twice. And I wanted to go on this sober travel trip. So the rule there was don't drink for 30 days before you go. So I gave it up at the end of 2019 following that, because we were leaving in January of 2020 and we were going to Asia. And we get back to the States February 2nd of 2020. So when we left, nobody even knew the word COVID. When we got back, I wasn't allowed back in my office building at work because no one understood COVID.
Wow.
Can't drink to cope, right? So the first time I tried to go out after getting back to being in the bar scene, live music, all the things, get a text that my estranged biological father died. And I was next of kin. So I got to throw the funeral, being the oldest child. His mom had passed the same week, who I had talked to her when I was in Cambodia. And then I throw his funeral, the world shuts down. And then again, somebody dies every month for the next 6 months. Not all COVID related, but I stuck to my couldn't drink to cope. I didn't break the rules that time. I was trying to process the stuff, the breakup, the deaths, the things. And 9 months later, I wake up without having a drink. And I was like, holy macaroni, my life's a little better now. Like, even though all those things had happened, it was like, okay, my production's up, my health's up. Things were, I could notice a difference. It wasn't perfect, but I noticed a big difference. And then 2021, because, 2020 wasn't fun enough. 2021, mom has an intentional overdose. She's in the hospital in ICU. I have to decide whether or not she lives or dies. While she's in there, 2 weeks later, my cousin gets intentionally ran over by a drunk girl at a bar, by a Jeep. So we have 2 family members in ICU. And 2 weeks later, my stepfather dies of alcohol abuse. I mean, the things, right? And if I didn't have my sobriety at that point, I don't know that I would have survived any of that. Mom is alive and well and part of the 321 mission, and we're moving forward, but it just makes sense to be sober for me. I mean, like, the signs are all around. Like, things happen when you abuse alcohol, gambling, or even, in Connecticut, there's a big marijuana presence. And we don't think of that as an addiction because of the science. But if we're numbing and escaping, again, like weed, shopping, et cetera, et cetera. So that's kind of what brought me here.
Wow. Incredible story. I'm so sorry for all the loss.
Thank you. This is the thing, Sabrina. This is the really cool thing. And this is where the invincibility comes in. In 2020, when I was going through all of that stuff, like I processed Bob, my father's death on my podcast and over a couple episodes. And what ended up showing up for me, it was like my first spiritual awakening, if for lack of better words. What I realized, because by then I had already been working on the 321 mission, all of the things I just described to you helped me change what I call my attitude to gratitude. Like that was my first big pivot, because what happens now on a day-to-day basis, if someone comes in my store or my club and they've experienced the loss of someone through suicide, or they're dealing with mental health issues themselves or someone around them, or whatever the thing is, I 100% feel that I am like literally chosen and have been given all those experiences so that I can connect with people and relate to people. Oh. And it's not all the same. I'm not taking away from their experiences, but it's a whole lot easier to have empathy and connection when you can relate.
Yeah, totally. I did that with a broken leg in 2020. Not that I was ever like unempathetic towards people that had broken something, but once it happened to me, I was like, damn, I see someone with a sprain and I'm like, are you okay?
Yeah, yeah, it does. It heightens it.
Yeah. Yeah. And we need those experiences because we need the empathy because everyone's going through something different. So we need the individuals who have that high empathy that you're talking about for certain situations so that there can be that connection and that help mentally and emotionally, that you can lean on a little bit. I know that you talk a lot about that we're not giving up addiction.
Mm.
What does that mean?
Oh, we were just talking about this yesterday. There's this kind of common mindset, and I saw a great post this morning about alcohol, for example. It's the only drug that we get kind of judged for using too little or using too much, right? So when this is the 2020 aha moment at that 9-month mark. It was like, okay, well, I wasn't drinking. It didn't mean I didn't have connection with my friends. It didn't mean that I didn't still do the hobbies and the things I like to do. So I didn't lose anything except for putting this toxic thing in my body. But by giving it up, I was able to experience my emotions, connection on a deeper level, a relationship with my higher power. I refer to it as universe, clarity, production, all those things. So I actually gained so much more by not being at the casino for hours, for not being at the bar for hours. I could still go to the bar, but my experience looks very different now. And I remember everything I said.
Totally. So you are not giving up an addiction, you're gaining like clarity basically throughout your day.
Exactly. Clarity and community and like education about how people work and stuff. You notice things. You, again, going back to the empathy or relating or not missing Zumba because I'm hungover or drunk or, like those kinds of things. You gain quality of life. And it's kind of funny because I'm still, even though I don't have those activities, I'm still probably the most disconnected person on the planet from mainstream. Like, I can't tell you what TV shows are on or who's a best singer. I don't know those things or what movies are at theaters because it's still not how I choose to live my life. I want to fill my cup with things that make me happy.
Totally. Yeah. That's good. So appreciate that. I like this attitude and gratitude. I wrote that down. That's good.
That's where the invincibility comes from, because even on the scary days, even on the hard days, since learning in 2020 that all of those challenges were to make me a better human, a better friend, a better leader, then when you're going through the bad stuff, if you go, okay, what do I need to learn? I'll take it. I'll figure it out. I'll pivot. I'll do whatever it is as a business owner, as a woman, as a, family member, all those things. Instead of, I'll give you an example. So like I live now back at home with my mother and my brother. And those are 3 adults who have very different opinions and ways of doing things. And instead of fighting, I do not believe with all my heart that you never change someone's mind by arguing. I just have that as a belief. It's been proven over and over in my life. So now it's back to grace, compassion, empathy, all those things. And it's okay. I appreciate you feeling that way. Where my attitude would have been defensive, ego, had to be right, louder voice until I win. You never win that way. My experience has been I never win that way. So attitude, Bobbie, is kind of like the devil and angel. And gratitude, Bobbie, is, again, what lesson can I learn from this? Am I getting closer? Like I'm the closest with my brother and my mother than I have been my whole entire life. But it took a lot of these learnings to get there.
Totally. Yeah, I get that for sure. When you're talking about exactly what you're talking about, it wasn't always that easy. It's become easier. And we have a ton of people watching live, by the way. I'd love to acknowledge those watching live. Thank you so much for being here and hanging out. There's a lot of people, though, that have addictions, whether it's alcohol or gambling, to escape. They're trying to escape work loads, overwhelm. They're trying to escape bad relationships, motherhood, fatherhood. How does somebody navigate that? What would be, I guess, the first steps into their real life or taking their power back?
Have you heard the story about the buffalo and the storms?
I don't think so.
Okay. So if a storm is coming, a cow, like it's coming and you see it, a cow runs away from the storm. Well, a buffalo turns and faces the storm and runs through it, and they get to the other side easier.
Are you serious?
Yes. It's the coolest concept. I love it. And it's like old Native American history, kind of that's where the story comes from. And people tell it in different ways. But if you're not facing it, if you are numbing, if you are escaping, you're being the cow, and the storm's gonna freaking stick with you. You're not getting anywhere because it's gonna catch you, and you're gonna be running with it. It's gonna be dumping on your head more and more and more. Or the problems are gonna escalate. Like for me, like gambling, what kind of problems escalated because I'm losing thousands of dollars every month, right? Or drinking and my body, well, my cholesterol's high, or my this or my that. It all escalates when we don't face it. So, and maybe the first step isn't necessarily facing it in the sense of addressing the relationship, the job, the thing, but maybe it's facing it by feeling your emotions. Even if you don't understand what they are, feel whatever is happening. Like there's no shame in crying. There's no shame in going for a walk. Just be aware and like, just let yourself be.
Wow. That's good. That's good. I love that. And that story, I've never heard of that before.
I learned it at an entrepreneurial boot camp, and it stuck with me. And ironically, the really bad storm in Florida a couple years ago, I was picking up my niece. She lived in Central Florida, and it was a bad hurricane. The one that I don't remember which coast, but it was bad. People are telling me, don't go. And I tell my mother, me and Kylie are buffaloes. And we actually did it. We drove through the storm and got to where we were trying to go. And that's another big shift for me, honestly, is having that belief system. That's where the invincibility comes in too.
Totally.
Believing you can.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of it's the mindset shift, really reframing all of the challenges that you've been through, recognizing the learnings to help you recognize that all the challenges coming towards you in the future are also the same. That's great.
They're all gifts. I learned something new every day, like with the little speed bumps and the big speed bumps.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I'd love to hear more about what you do, more about who you help.
Well, it's interesting. I came in, I opened my store. So if you can imagine a liquor store, but all the drinks don't have alcohol in them, my place starts with that. And then we're a social club. So we have 3 more rooms, and we do a lot of events and activities. And I went into it with this very recovery mindset, thinking that I would attract, 12 steppers or people in sober groups, that kind of thing. But really, who I help is whoever just wants a little something better. If they want to have fun. I'd like to tell you that there's a bucket of demographic, but I get old men, young men, single women, married women, couples. It's a lot of different people that come in. And one of the coolest things, like it happened yesterday, I had a 25-year-old man, a 50-year-old man, and me, and the three of us just had this great mental health conversation about difficult things. And it was beautiful. But I can also have my empty nester 65-year-old woman that's like, what do I do with my life? I'm retired. The grandkids live in a different state. So it's really anybody who's like searching and knows they don't feel at their happiness capacity or even happiness start, right? Like it's just, I don't use the word HATE anymore, but I really don't like that status quo cycle that has been inbred in us. And that's what's not bringing people joy. If they think they have to work a 9 to 5, if they think they have to have X amount in the bank, like how many people don't go on a vacation because they think they can't afford it, but there's X amount of dollars in the bank. But then if something happens and they never got to do it, like, I just wonder what the heck's the point if we're not doing the thing. So
Right.
it's this search. So it's anybody who just wants something a little better or options, right? Maybe they still do drink. Maybe they felt their drinking was ramping up, but maybe they still want to drink, but not every time.
Yeah.
So now they have, thanks to all the, and I have to call out, like all the brands and amazing beverage and innovators. I mean, there's 3,000 brands on the market right now supporting non-alc.
Wow.
And like, thank you to them, because I couldn't have a store if they weren't producing it for me and creating those choices for my guests.
Yeah. There's so many now. They say it's growing. The amount of non-alcoholic beverages that are like cool and hip, there's like a whole sect that's being made.
Well, and it's actually my perspective. And again, learning from my guests, not even when I went into this, I thought one thing, I thought it was about having non-alc and calling it sober and all of those things. But you know what's really breaking through, and this is what tells me about our people wanting better mental, physical, emotional help, the functional beverages. I don't know if you've heard that term, functional beverages, but
Like
they're
make it smarter?
Increased focus, better sleep, more energy, but it's all done not through I'm thinking about choosing my language here. It's done through herbs, spices. Like we've probably all heard of ginger and turmeric, and they have benefits in our body. But these non-alc brands are getting even more creative. And there's things like Damiana leaf and ashwagandha and Shazandra berry and things that like I have to look up, and I'm still learning because I wasn't prepared, because that's what it is. People want their problem solved around who they are in all of those categories.
Wow. That's great. That's great. So, store and social club, what are some of these events?
Oh, we're having so much fun. We've done like 3 or 4 different sober sip and paints. We've done mocktail class. We do free events every month. We do game night, hikes. We're starting wellness when I get back. We're going to be doing breath work for our first one. I have a yoga instructor that's like, can I please come? And that's the fun of it too. I focus the events again on those categories, but also the collaboration in the community and promoting the nonprofits in town or the businesses in town. We had a wine and cheese pairing party. Oh, my brain is on overload. Oh, my 50th birthday is coming up, and this is really cool. If you've watched Shark Tank before, maybe you've heard of Cousins Maine Lobster. It's the best lobster ever. But the food trucks come into my store so that we can serve, they can have lobster and sit down and enjoy a great beverage. So a lot of different things. And I'm open to anything. We're going to do some book signings with local authors. Like you do this very well, Sabrina. You lift other women up and people up. And that's really the name of the game, right? Like your audience, my audience, we wouldn't find each other if we didn't collaborate. So a lot of it is centered around that and figuring out what people like the most. We're having a comedy show in August that we're hosting. We hired a comedian and a non-alc comedy show and magic show, so that, all right, so I'm a little selfish, maybe a lot selfish, but when I go to a magic show, they always pick on the kids to be the volunteers. Well, there's no kids and no alcohol at my shows. So adults can have fun too. Like I want them to play again. I want them to know that you can have kids and that's wonderful, but not all of your joy needs to come through the experiences of kids. You can have those playful experiences too.
Yeah, that's fine. I totally know what you mean too. Going to the mall, going to the zoo, the museums, you're like watching your kid and having fun through your kid. So I totally get that. It's good. Wow, I love that. What would you say is the number one lesson that you've learned about life?
The reframe that we can do it. We need to understand we're not going to do it perfectly. Like that's where the love and the grace and compassion came in. But they are all lessons, reminders, depending on how you want to, frame it and where you are in your journey. But something good is always on the other side. Something better than you ever imagined is always on the other side. On the other side of the pain, grief, loss, misery, it can always get better.
It's good. When you, I forgot the question.
I relate to that.
When you are, we have a bunch of people watching live. That's what it was. We have a bunch of people watching live. And I want you to speak to the females of the group that are listening who are struggling with addiction, just in general. What would be some advice that you would give them?
The first thing is, see, I hope this is okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna change the lens of it as struggling, because maybe it's an addiction or whatever the language is, but ask yourself the questions. It could be as simple as when, like for me, I still love my ice cream and I still haven't gotten rid of my cigarettes. I got to, right? But why am I smoking that cigarette? Why am I drinking the drink? Why am I doing the thing? So ask the why first and maybe sit on that, right? And the other end of that is, what do you want? And that's not as obvious sometimes, but what do you want your life? Like, I think one of the most common issues is the unhappiness at work or the unhappiness in a relationship. But we might have our parents or society's belief system that you have to earn so much. You have to do it this way. You can't get divorced for the kids. Well, if you're being miserable, for example, if you're in a not a great marriage and it's not lighting you up in all those capacities, emotionally, physically, spiritually, whatever those things are, if it's not lighting you up and you're not excited, 95% of the time with your partner, ask yourself the question, and then ask yourself the second question. If the kid thing is a block for you, how do I want my kid to grow up? Do I want them to grow up lit up or settling? Because if we're settling, we're escaping, something's not making us happy. Like, Sabrina, I have the least amount of income as I have in my whole life. But when I walk into my teal and purple walls and somebody leaves with something, an alternative or a piece of conversation, it's invaluable. It makes me happy. It's not money that makes me happy. It's not, being in the perfect relationship that makes me happy. It's knowing Bobbie. It's knowing what makes me happy. I'm happy to skip down the street in my pajamas. Like we had a pajama night. And I'm happy getting people to smile because they're like, she's wearing emoji flannels, on a Friday night out in public, intentionally. Like there's so much more. And I think for me, the biggest thing that kept me from believing that was not believing I was worth it. Because if your biological dad, you're not worth your parents' attention, you're not worth the promotion, you're not worth the thing. People are telling you that. But here's the thing. It's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. We are worth it. And that's usually where the digging leads a lot of people, is getting that understanding that we deserve it. We absolutely deserve it. Muted. I think you're muted, my friend.
Thank you. Totally agree with all of that. Thank you so much for sharing in depth on that. For those listening live, thank you for being here. For those listening on the replay, make sure you hashtag replay wherever you're at so we can send you some love. Bobbie, as we're wrapping up here, I'd love for you to tell everybody where they can find you, website and social media.
Well, I will tell you, 321nokiddin.com will take you just about anywhere. I'm one and only, and I didn't even tell everybody the why in my name, so maybe this will help make me a little memorable. But March 21st is my clean date from gambling of 2017. And then No Kiddin kind of has two little things to it. One is I'm the only business that has no alcohol, gambling, and children at the same time. And the other part, and then part of my big mission, is when gambling is so infused in our community, from raffles to arcades for the kids and all these things. It's so infused that when I tell people that it's the number one highest addiction for suicide, or that, things, gambling can impact your life, they're usually kind of like have that aha moment, like, oh, I can get in trouble from gambling. No kidding. So,
okay.
It's that light bulb moment. So yeah, 321 No Kiddin. It might have Sober Playground, Sober Social Club, Bottle Shop. It may have something after it, depending on what their preferred choice is. But it's my responsibility to meet you where you're at. And if you're on Insta or Facebook or YouTube or TikTok, I'm in all those places, so I could be there for you.
Perfect. Well, this has been phenomenal. I so appreciate you coming in. I so appreciate you sharing some of your story and some of your background with that. Any closing thoughts as we start to wrap up here?
Whether you know it or not, like, we love you and other people love you. And it's a beautiful world. And you just allow yourself to know it, feel it, and receive it.
That's good. That's good. They hear you for sure on that one. Well, thank you so much, Bobbie, for being here. For those of you listening live or on the replay, if you're resonating with Bobbie and all the goodness that she shared today, make sure you check out her link, 321nokiddin.com. It is a clickable link in the description wherever you are listening to us at, and her social media is in or on that website. That brings us to an end of yet another incredible episode of Her Talk Show. Thank you so much, Bobbie, for being here, sharing your wisdom, inspiring us all. To our dedicated listeners, thank you for staying until the very end. Remember to follow, like, and share. And once again, my name is Sabrina Victoria. I invite you to join Her Nation, our amazing community where we continue to uplift each other every step of the way by having conversations just like this one. Until